Welcome to Status Check. I'm Nicholas J. Orcutt from the Fractured Line. I want to thank you all for joining me. Primetime special, right? Never done one of these on primetime. Um, I had some planned today, and I figured instead of going over things that I report on Newswise, if you will all indulge me, I actually wanted to kind of focus on something that with my article yesterday about the call I was on. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody out there, all of you. That call was a terrible call. I was having a very hard time. I was struggling a lot with it, which is why I wrote that almost live, almost directly after that call happened. I went and wrote that, and the outreach I got from everybody was outstanding, and it really did make a huge difference. And I want to thank everybody for that. Huge difference. It made it so I was able to actually finish that shift. So to all of you out there, thank you very, very much. My partner I was working with also actually was reading the comments. He appreciated it as well. It was a very difficult situation. And it's not something they trained you to deal with, right? You don't, when you're on a call like that, like, so I guess we'll start from the start, right? When you go to a 911 call, you always have a level of anxiety. There's always a part of you that's worried because you don't know what you're going to walk into. You don't know what you're getting into. And you can never be sure that you're going to be safe. The idea is ultimately we're going to do our best to make sure everybody is safe, but we can never, my number one goal, and this is every person who works 911, our number one goal is always the safety and well-being of my crew. Whoever I'm working with, they are my number one priority. I'm going to go home safe to my kids and my wife. They're going to go home safe to their family. If at any point there's a problem between me keeping my patients safe and me keeping my partners safe, my partner's going to win. And so it becomes really difficult sometimes to get in a situation where it is I want to protect my partner. I want to protect the people I'm working with, but I also have to do my job. And a lot of that has to do with, sometimes it can be your partner that makes it difficult. Sometimes it can be just a situation that makes it difficult. And it happens quite a bit. And so I figured today, if you'll indulge me, I actually have I essentially wrote an article that I didn't put up as an article, but it goes along with what I went over yesterday and what goes along with the safety or the lack thereof that we have. So if you hear me rustling papers, it's because I literally printed out everything I have just to make life easier. The biggest thing I think that people misunderstand about EMS, and this is EMS as a whole, fire, police, they get deemed under public safety. They are part of the public safety division of our government. They are essential workers, and they are seen as they're civil servants, and they are under public safety. EMS on a federal scale, we are under traffic safety. And that is, we aren't public safety. We aren't under the Department of Health. We are traffic safety. That in itself is what the problem is, right? You can't expect the same rules that apply for the people paving the roads to apply for the people who are responding to 911 calls. And it's really important to know when the police and fire departments have a problem or have an emergency, we're the ones they call. They don't call, the police don't call the police. The fire department doesn't call the fire department. They call us. So even when the first responders have a problem, they call us. We are the first responders' first responder. But it's been since the 1966, I believe, was when the white pages came out. And 1966. And it was because of highway deaths that they even started developing ambulances. And it has been a real struggle for us in the field to get some sort of recognition or get some sort of benefit for us, right? Um, we deal with I actually I know somebody right now is saying, article with retired medic RN friend. Yes. Um, I appreciate that they think I am funny. Um, any hospital worker will tell you, any emergency nurse will tell you, violence against healthcare workers is prevalent. It is huge. For some reason, we are in a society that thinks that healthcare should be treated like any other service you get and that you can demand how it goes. It's not how it works. If you call or if you need emergency medical services, be it the hospital, be it in an ambulance, wherever, the moment you call, you are more or less telling me that you are trusting my judgment. You are trusting what I'm going to say and do. This is not there's no discussion with it. There's no, what is right is going to be right. And that's going to happen regardless. Um, People don't like that. So frequently what we deal with are people who will say like, oh, I think I'm having a heart attack or I'm having a stroke. Maybe, but I can pretty much definitively tell you that, if you're like, I'm having a stroke because X, Y, and Z, I am the person that can tell you, no, you're not. There's something going on, but it's not a stroke. People don't like that. People tend to think that Google is diagnosing them and that whatever Google tells them is true. They don't want to believe that the guy in the ambulance actually knows what they're talking about. That's not their fault either. Before it sounds like I'm just shitting on random people, it's not. It's not the public's fault that they don't know what we do. Um, it's just very frustrating for us in the field. But as I was saying, the issue with safety for healthcare providers, again, it goes across the board. Healthcare providers have been under assault for a long time. You will find it. There was an episode. I know The Pit is a big show. There was one of the first episodes in The Pit. The first season was about the nurse getting beat up. Violence to healthcare providers is prevalent, and it's just so widespread. And it's starting to become better. There's starting to actually be people fighting back and people trying to make a difference for us. But again, they'll make a difference. So they've made laws where healthcare providers are protected. It's a federal felony to assault a healthcare provider. We aren't considered healthcare providers. We do all the same job. Like my job in the ambulance is the same job that you're going to have somebody do in the hospital. But if you swing at me, you might as well have just swung at a construction worker because it's the same level. It's not, it's not that level. And so it becomes really, really difficult for us to be protected. And I have said time and time and time and time again, we need to be essential workers. EMS across the board should be essential workers. The CDC flat out stated, because unlike police and fire, EMS are rarely classified or funded as essential services, primarily funded at local levels and often severely underfunded. That's from the CDC. Like, the CDC is saying, hey, this is the problem with healthcare workers. And it just keeps getting worse and worse, right? So we'll do a little bit of a story time here. I have been there. It was the summer of 2017, 2018. It was one of the summers. Probably it's 2017, I think. It was in Syracuse. We called it the summer of Spike. Spike is a synthetic marijuana drug. I couldn't tell you what's in it. Nobody can. They change it all the time. But Spike was the summer of Spike or something. That was the summer of Spike. So typically on a call, Anybody who's an EMS will tell you the very first thing, and that doesn't matter what level. Every call, it's BSI scene safety, right? So you put on your gloves and you make sure the scene is safe. We would be getting sent to spike calls, and instead of putting on our latex gloves, we'd be putting on leather gloves because the moment we'd get out of the ambulance, we would be getting we would fight, and it wasn't the police weren't showing up. The police didn't want to be bothered. The fire department said it wasn't their responsibility or their job. It was us. We were the ones that, from the moment we arrived on scene till we were finally able to get that person to the hospital, it was almost a knockout, drag out brawl. I was actually talking the other day with my partner about how I had a tooth chipped on one of those. Like, guy clapped me right in the mouth, and he clapped me right in the mouth as I was getting out of the ambulance. And it's just that was what our job was. And you hear all the time, back the blue, back the blue. I can tell you from experience, from being in my side of the field, the police don't give a fuck about us. They don't want to help us. They don't want to do our job. They don't want to do their job. They especially don't want to do our job. And so the moment they can get out of the way, they do. If you try to make it so say I was assaulted, I know my sister was assaulted. If you try to make a police report about it, they will tell you they don't want to do it. They'll say, oh, this is a healthcare issue only. I don't want to make a report about this. Or, do you really want to have to go to court for this? They'll say that to you in the hospital. They will say the exact same thing to nurses. Are you sure you want to make a report about this? They encourage us not to report violence towards us. That instantly, if we're civil servants and we have a strong enough backing, that goes away. That is one of the very first things that goes away. That is, you are talking about saving somebody's life. And I don't mean that, that's not rhetoric. It will save one of our lives. There have been, I want to say this year alone, where was it? This year alone, we have a FDNY, June, this just a couple days ago. There was an EMT attacked after a rock was thrown at the ambulance. He was knocked to the ground, kicked in the torso multiple times. They're not union. They're not civil servants. They're not essential workers. There's no protection. There's no repercussion. I want you to think about what would have happened if a cop was driving somewhere and had a rock thrown at their car and they got out and then somebody just started to attack them. Think about the national news story that would be. When it comes to EMS, you don't even hear about it. It doesn't even make a splash because they don't give a fuck. And there was Melanie Camp. She was stabbed in her own ambulance. I want to say that was Michigan, maybe. But all of it on body camera, just stabbed in her own ambulance. There's been in Cleveland, 2025, overdosing woman, medic left with physical deformities after she beat the hell out of him. And it wasn't the first time she had beaten up EMS. Graham Hoffman, 29, Kansas City firefighter, paramedic. He was fatally stabbed April 2025 by a patient he was treating in the ambulance. His accused killer had been arrested days earlier for biting a cop, charged and released on $10,000 bond she posted before stabbing the paramedic. They don't care about us. And it's really exhausting. And so when I go to a call like I did yesterday, where I have somebody in my face screaming, I get angry. And I'm not angry at the person. I'm angry at the system. Now, I will say when the dad came out and threatened to put me and my partner in an ambulance, my partner was a very good dude. and he is the only reason why I I was able to maintain my professionalism, because I was ready at that point to just simply say, fuck it. I don't care. I don't make enough money to deal with this. Um, it's hard because, any job you're at, there's always a human element, right? So my job means I deal with a lot of different types of people. I have a very troubled youth past. I grew up in a very violent household. We had an incredibly abusive stepdad. Um, he's our stepdad was the kind of stepdad who I tell people stories about and they don't believe that he's real. He doesn't sound like a real person. He sounds like a character. Um, for a quick example, our cat had given birth to kittens, and he had put the cat outside for one reason or the other. And he worked second shift, so he worked 3 to 11. And on my way, I was waking up for school in the morning. I was 12, 11, 13, in that age range. But I'd woken up for school in the morning, and the cat was outside, so I let the cat in. So what we do, you let the cat in when the cat's outside. And the cat had woken him up, and he answered the cat waking him up by throwing me down and slapping me around. And we had an upholstered chair, one of those old, I call them oldie style chairs, but like the old flower upholstery chair. And he made me sit there, and I had to put my hand on the chair, on the handguard of the chair. And he took his steel-toed boot, and he beat my hand for every hour of sleep he lost. And if I moved my hand, he hit me in the face. And so I sat there while he broke 3 of my fingers and just stared at him, dead-eyed. He was a very, very abusive kind of guy. And he was also a very short, fat, balding. He wasn't balding. That's not fair. He had a skullet. And if you're not aware of what a skullet is, the skullet is like half of a mullet. It is like nothing in the front, ponytail in the back. Nothing says I can't attract women like a skullet, right? You're not even getting the party. You're just going full out stripping, just nothing. But he was one of those guys who he thought he was a Harley Davidson biker, even though he didn't own a Harley. I don't even know if he knew how to ride one. But so I learned at a very young age to fight back. Because of that, that is why I fight the way I do. It's why I am as vocal as I am. That's why I can't just accept things being fucked up because they're fucked up. That's not an understandable reasoning for me. I don't accept things are the way they are because they are. No. We can always make them better, and we can always fix them for everybody involved. So when I go to somewhere who is very reminiscent of what my stepdad reminds me of, it's very difficult for me to compartmentalize that. So having a guy who looks like he, went to the thrift store and said, dress me up like a shitty biker, threatened me. I'm ready to fight. I'm ready just to throw down and fight. So it becomes very triggering. It's very hard for me to differentiate and separate the two parts, right? So that is why that was as hard for me as it was. But it's, you always think, right? You always think when, I'm sure we've all been told, if you have a job that's difficult, if there's something getting to you, report it. Talk to somebody, talk to your boss, tell your boss. That is why we do like de-escalation, critical stress incident management. It's designed to make sure people don't burn out, and it's designed for our mental health to make us okay and keep us going. because it's going to be just as hard to do this tomorrow as it was today, as it will be the next day. And so if I'm trying to do my job already at this amped up level of stress, it's a no-win for anybody. Um, that was the part where you saw me, where I reached out to my boss, and his response was nice. Um, he avoided me the rest of the day as well, which was probably the best for him. But that is that is a direct correlation to the fact that we don't get funding for this. The police, the DOJ funds them, they get tax dollars. Fire department is supported by the US Fire Administration. EMS is a rounding error in a federal budget. Like, oh, we might have some money left over. Let's give it to the ambulance. Maybe they'll be okay. Who knows? Maybe instead of paying for, giving them a livable wage, maybe they can hire somebody that can talk to them to make them feel better when they had a bad day. But, the police, let's make sure that we protect them. The fire department, God forbid, they have to run into a burning building and do their fucking job. We need to make sure that we're there to support them fully. But EMS, the guys that are there on the worst day of your life, fuck it. They'll deal with it, right? It's cruel for the sake of cruelty. It's this way because they've made it this way. There's so much money in EMS, and not in real EMS, but in corporate EMS. There is so much money to be made for these companies, these big, massive companies like GMR, AMR, or Metro. There's so much money to be made that they spend a lot of money making sure that EMS does not get recognized. They do not want us to be part of public safety. They will lose money. And so they absolutely go on campaigns to destroy our reputation and to make sure that we don't get what we need to better ourselves. And it really, 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 really sucks. And the problem is it's going to affect everybody eventually. And I say that because right now, about 4.5 million Americans live in an ambulance desert. What that means is if you are in anything close to a rural area, it's a 25-minute or more ambulance to get to you. I can tell you from experience, time matters. Me getting there on time, me getting there quick matters. If I am 25 minutes from getting to where I need to go, you're going to die. It doesn't help anybody. All it does is, congratulations, you saved a little bit of money that, your county is now going to ship off to put up a new sign, maybe spend money statewide to go put it into the next Yankee stadium. Meanwhile, the people that need the services are fucked. It needs to change. OSHA in 2024 proposed an emergency response standard. The federal first responders benefit framework for it is a patchwork, though. So our legal status as a first responder depends on the state. Police, first responder across the board. Fire, first responder across the board. EMS, maybe the guys in the ambulance. And if you have been fortunate enough to never have to use an ambulance, you wouldn't understand this. But if you are one of the people who have had to actually rely on an ambulance to take care of you, your family, whatever it may be thankful that they know how to do their job, and be thankful that they are qualified to do their job. Without ambulances, the death toll will skyrocket. That's not hyperbole. The death toll will skyrocket. And it seems insane, insane that, you know, it was Reagan and I want to say it was 81 who said, let the states decide how to handle the ambulances. Yet here we are in 2026. We know it doesn't work at the state level. We know the states aren't doing it. States don't care. I live in New York. New York's a blue state. New York doesn't give a shit. You know, outside of New York City, a significant portion of New York is rural. There is a significant portion of that rural area that does not have, if they have a fire department, it's a volunteer department. And if there's an ambulance, the closest real ambulance is going to be miles away. Most of them will also be volunteer. That is insane. A volunteer ambulance. Under what situation would you want a volunteer doctor? I mean, sure, it'd be nice not to get a bill, but like a volunteer doctor? You know, how is anybody okay with this? How does this system work for anybody? I I ask that because I've been struggling with that. I've been struggling with the fact that there's no there's no movement anywhere. And I've reached out to a few different politicians. None of them care. None. Um, None of them want to fight that fight. They would much rather, it makes there's no APAC money in it. Trump doesn't care. So, you know, the left wing, the right wing, neither of them give a shit. And it feels like I'm going insane because you would think that I'm trying to, it almost feels to me like I am standing, talking, trying to get these people to do something. And I'm trying to help them. I have the answers to help them and they don't care. And meanwhile, because they don't care, I'm watching my coworkers, my friends, my family deal with the repercussions professionally. And then I'm seeing what happens to the public when there aren't ambulances around. Because even in cities so Syracuse we have AMR in the city and all the counties are not for profit. And so AMR is a for-profit ambulance. And I want to say at the busiest they have maybe on a good day, they will have 8 ambulances on at a time. Syracuse has a population of 200,000, I believe it is. So that's 8 ambulances for 200,000 people. Syracuse is a very low. Syracuse is a poor city. It's poor. It's Detroit without the professional sports teams. Those are the people that need help the most. The ones that don't have. And so what happens is all 8 ambulances will be out. Then they'll start pulling ambulances from surrounding areas. And before you know it, there are no ambulances available except for 25 miles out. And this isn't a big city. This isn't a metropolitan city with a large population. They will deplete all the ambulances. And I know a lot of people have gone, and I a lot of the comments whenever I start talking about this to people are, well, people misuse the system or they think it's a taxi or this, that, and the other thing. That's only part of the problem. And I don't even blame that as the problem because that is such a small portion of it. It isn't the people that think that we are a taxi for them to go to the hospital waiting room that are the problem. It is the affluent people who think that they have just ordered a high-class Uber that is there to make it so the hospital sees them faster. One thing I can tell everybody, going to the hospital by ambulance will not get you seen faster. Um, in fact, 99.9% of the time, you will be seen later than if you had brought yourself there. Now, the exception is if you are having a real emergency, go by ambulance. You will get in faster. If you just don't feel good, or it's just like, I've had this for a while, or I've just blah, 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 ambulance won't get you in faster. You are significantly better off going by yourself or having somebody drive you. I bring you to the hospital. An ambulance brings you to the hospital. You've been triaged. You've been treated. All the life threats have been taken care of. You go in by yourself. You have not been triaged and treated, and all the life threats have not been taken care of. But it's not so much the people that are calling saying, I want to, I'm, my toes hurt for 3 days and I want to ride to the hospital. That is the easiest call I'll have in a night because they're literally going to walk out to my ambulance, sit on the bench seat. I'll bring them to the hospital. They'll walk into the waiting room and off I go. Done. Done. And I wish I was kidding. It's that simple. Um, it's the people who are, I've been feeling weak for about 2-3 weeks. And, I called my doctor. My doctor said that if I still kept feeling weak to go to the hospital. So I called an ambulance so I'd get in faster. And those are the ones where they're like, can you turn off my oven? Can you, turn off the lights in my house? Can you call my daughter? Can you carry my purse? Like, you called 911 for an emergency. And I wish I was kidding about that. That is almost a transcript of calls I've been on. And way too many of them too. So the problem isn't that it's not the problem of the people who are, using the system or, getting free healthcare. It's not our Medicaid, Medicare people that typically are the problem. It's actually usually the people with private health insurance who think that they supersede what the other people deserve. They think that they are in a level that is above everybody. And that's where the problem comes from, right? Um, it's a very frustrating thing. And especially for us, it's frustrating because the amount of people that I've had that, the amount of people that will call and they will go, I don't know if I want to go to the hospital. Can you just tell me what you think? I think you should go to the hospital. I don't care. I don't care if your complaint is that you want a turkey sandwich. You called 911. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're a grown adult. Do what you're going to do. I will support it 100%. Um, but even that comes back to the fact that because we are non-essential, we have to bill the way we do. And so it doesn't allow us to actually treat patients and it doesn't do what needs to be done for the patients. And it just all leads to a burnout and it all leads to just a level of unsafe conditions for us that ends up just destroying providers. I've seen some of the absolute best, smartest people I've ever met not be able to do this job anymore because you just had it ripped out of you. It's like I went on that call. I went on that call and I was threatened and screamed at. And after that call, I had to go to another one. That was the start of my 24-hour shift. I don't have the luxury because of the way my job works to say, I don't want to do this. I don't have the luxury that the police do where I can say, listen, this really got to me. I need to take time to collect myself. I don't even have the luxury half the time to sit down and eat a warm meal. It is it is exhausting, and there is a lack of protection for us. And it's that lack of protection that's defeating. It just destroys every part of everything potentially good that we have. You know, I having to so this is we'll kind of go on a little bit of a story right here. There is a there is a almost every single ambulance station that you'll ever see has a washer and dryer inside of it. The purpose of that washer and dryer isn't to make our lives easier. The purpose of that washer and dryer in every ambulance station is because they know we're going to get covered in blood and they expect us to go back, wash our uniform, clean it, put it back on, and get back to our job. I want you to consider that for a minute. They expect us to be covered in blood, go, wash our uniform, take a quick shower. There's showers in every station too. Get our uniform back on and go back out and do another call. And it isn't a, it isn't a, oh, if you don't do it, that's when you start getting the, well, it's just, this is what you signed up for. This is what the job is. This is what it means to do your job. No, it doesn't. My job is to help people. My job is not to sacrifice being a human. I have had calls in the past that have absolutely broken me. And I mean broken. Like I it will completely just they've destroyed me, and it takes months and months for me to come to terms with it. When we have those calls, we should be able to say, I'm struggling. We should be able to go, you know what? I just picked up brain from a 13-year-old kid off of my shoes. I think I want to go home today. But we can't. We're not allowed to. We're not union. There are some AMRs that are, but even those are a weak union. I have to just brush my shoes off, wash my uniform, and get back out there. It's inhumane, right? I don't think I'm being facetious with that. It's inhumane to demand that of people. You know, I can tell you if you're working in the ER and you have a really bad call, or you're working in the ER and you have a bad patient and it goes to shit, they will have somebody down there to talk to you and to handle it. You have a team. So there used to be I used to have a thing I would do with every partner. And I did this because, I had a summer of trauma, I called it. And I had multiple like severe trauma calls, and they were all most of them happened within 2 weeks of each other, if not even sooner. And it I have a habit now that every time I have a bad call, I know management's not going to care. I know that there's nobody there that's going to talk us down from the ledge. I know that there's no easy way through this. And so I've done the same thing now for years. I take my partner to closest gas station and I buy them chocolate milk and I buy me chocolate milk and we sit quietly in the ambulance and we drink chocolate milk. You don't talk about it. Nothing else matters. Just enjoy the chocolate milk. It's probably going to sit poorly in your stomach. You could be lactose intolerant. Shut up. Drink the chocolate milk. Because we are here right now. I have had partners tell me that that has been what has kept them from breaking. That shouldn't be my job. It shouldn't be my responsibility to keep them together. I will gladly do it. They're my partner. I would go to battle for my partner. And to this day, I've yet to really have a long-term partner that I haven't thought of as a family member. But I shouldn't care about their well-being more than their company. It should be a natural thing. I'm not sure how many of you saw, I put out maybe a month ago now at this point. So the week of May 20th, my birthday week, the week of May 20th was EMS Appreciation Week. I think I want to say this is maybe the 5th year they've really been doing it. Oh, probably longer than that, actually. COVID didn't count, but this was, it's been around there. And every year since they started doing it, it's gotten shittier and shittier. They just don't care anymore. So I had sent that email out about, what would make EMS week and make EMS providers feel appreciated is a nacho machine. And it was, I wrote a very persuasive letter. I thought it was hilarious. Most of the people that saw it thought it was hilarious. But under that was a real statement. I was trying to tell the company I work for, hey, this is how we take care of people. This is how we treat our own. Because there have been so many people who aren't part of us, who aren't what we do, that don't want to take care of us. So this is how we do it. This is how you guys give us a chocolate milk. I was told no. I was told they don't want to. That's a whole nother topic. But it does lead me to the last point I wanted to talk about, which is management in EMS. EMS management is one of the most difficult positions you can hold, but it's also one of the most abused. So, the way it works here in upstate New York, and this is almost across the board for the way agencies are. You have your director of operations, who's the big guy, head guy. The director of operations is the one that will say, this is what we're going to run. They do all the money, everything. Then you'll have your operations supervisors, and it could be anywhere from 1 to 7, 8, how many? And those are the ones that maintain things like the scheduling and supplies and all these things. And almost universally, the moment somebody becomes a director of operations, the ability to remember that you're still a part of the team disappears. And it attracts. So director of operations in EMS is a micro version of politics. It's always, I always say the people that are attracted to politics, the people that probably shouldn't be in politics. wanting to do politics usually indicates that there's something wrong with you and you need to be doing anything else. EMS management's kind of the same. Um, the moment somebody becomes a director of operations, they go from being part of the team to believing they are more than the team. And nothing better summarizes it than the fact that probably every single director of operations I've ever met has has a coffee cup in their office somewhere that says, I'm the one in charge. Could be, you know, my show, my monkeys, or, I'm the one in charge of you stupid fucks, or, I've seen all versions of it, but it goes across the entire spectrum. And it is you wouldn't want a politician being the one to try to give you advice and try to make your job better. I mean, you would technically, but we're talking, Chuck Schumer doesn't give a fuck about you. So Chuck Schumer cares about Chuck Schumer. Ambulance directors don't give a fuck about you. Ambulance directors give a fuck about ambulance directors. It is a losing battle. And so that was why when I had gotten the response to my message about the abuse me and my partner had gone under, and the response being nice, that was worse than the call. That was worse than the call. That actually was more upsetting than the actual call. Here is the person who's supposed to represent the agency. This is a person whose job it is to be the head of the agency. He is supposed to be the one that's in control, the one that runs everything. And his response is nice to me, saying that me and my partner were threatened, screamed at. His response was nice. That is where the problem is. And the reason that problem happens is because it's not a civil service job, because it's not under the Department of Public Safety. Nobody except whoever's directly on the board for these department or these agencies, or whatever private company is in charge, has any say at all in who gets these positions. And so when you have an unregulated field that nobody cares about, and you mix in egos and people who have been manipulated emotionally and mentally their whole career, and then you finally give them the authority to do whatever they want, they take it and they destroy people. And it's incredibly sad. It is incredibly sad. And I've watched many of these men who, and they're always men, which is half of the problem right there. I've watched many of these guys who, the best way to explain it and the best way to describe them is the classic, like, tiny dick syndrome guys. I was never good enough in my life, so I'm going to make my job be more important than everybody else. And because of that, I'm going to make everyone feel like shit because of it. All the time. But because of that, and because it's not a civil service position, because there's no oversight, there's no regulation, there's no qualifications, we suffer. We are the ones that suffer. So I know I say this all the time. Those of you out there, and I know I have a very eclectic audience of people from all across the country and all across the world. Talk to your representatives, please. Tell them that you think EMS deserves to be essential. Tell them that You want to make sure that when your family needs an ambulance, there's one there, and tell them that they deserve to be treated like professionals. That is the only way that this will ever get better. It's the only way to make this better. I can't do it myself alone. Um, I need I need as many of you who are willing to be loud and be obnoxious and piss off every politician. Do it. Eventually, they will have to either say, okay, or we don't care about ambulances, which tell you everything you need to know. Um, we can make this better. We can. You know, the fractured line audience alone is big enough that it could make this better. It could genuinely fix this. Uh, it just needs to. There just has to be enough noise coming. There has to be enough of a spark and a reason to make these people want to do it. So I leave you with that plea from me to all of you. I beg of you all, be loud, as I say all the time to everybody. Stay loud, stay informed, and stay dangerous. Because that is how we're going to make a better world for everybody. With that, I thank you all. Have a good night, and until next time.